Adewale offers a small, reassuring smile. Maybe your memories will return in time. She nods, but doubt lingers in her eyes. Deep down she knows she is not just an ordinary girl. And though the village does not yet realize it, the truth about who she really is will change everything. In the grand kingdom of Zolani, the once thriving capital is now a place of mourning. The streets, usually filled with the sounds of music and laughter, are eerily quiet. A heavy gloom lingers over the palace, where King Abadil sits on his throne, his face etched with sorrow. His daughter, Princess Amara, has been missing for weeks. The tragedy unfolded on what should have been an ordinary journey. Amara's royal convoy had been traveling through the dense jungle, returning from a diplomatic visit to a neighboring kingdom. The air had been thick with humidity, the scent of damp earth filling their senses. The guards were vigilant, their hands never far from their weapons. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. Masked attackers emerged from the trees, arrows flying through the air like deadly whispers. Horses reared, soldiers fell, and the once orderly procession dissolved into a desperate fight for survival. Amidst the turmoil, Amara's carriage was overturned, its golden insignia trampled into the mud. Screams filled the air before being swallowed by the relentless storm that followed. When the rain ceased and the dust settled, there was no sign of the princess. King Abadil had sent out search parties, dispatched his best warriors, and even consulted the kingdom's most powerful seers. But every effort had led to nothing. The royal family's grief weighed on the kingdom like an anchor, and hope was slipping away. Then came the reward. The king, desperate for answers, offered a fortune to anyone who could bring back his daughter, alive or dead. Across the land, bounty hunters, mercenaries, and fortune-seekers flooded the countryside, each hoping to claim the prize. But none returned with real proof. What the king did not know was that the very man overseeing the investigations was the one who had betrayed him. Minister Okoro, a high-ranking official in the king's court, hid his treachery well. He had been the one to orchestrate the attack, ensuring that Amara would never return. His reasons were simple: power. With the princess gone, the line of succession would weaken, and the king's grief would make him vulnerable. Okoro fed the king false leads, sending his warriors on wild hunts to distant lands. He silenced those who dared to question the truth, ensuring that the royal family remained blind to his deception. Yet there was one thing Okoro had not accounted for. Amara was still alive. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, beyond the reach of royal search parties and assassins, the princess had survived. But with no memory of who she was lost to the world that desperately needed her. And as the kingdom mourned, as Okoro tightened his grip on power, and as the king's heart grew heavier with despair, Amara's journey was just beginning, one that would bring her face to face with the enemies who had tried to erase her from history. As days turn into weeks, Amara becomes a part of Adewale's daily life. Though she remembers nothing of her past, she is eager to learn, adapting quickly to the village's humble ways. At first, she struggles with the rough, calloused work of a fisherman's life. Her hands blister as she helps mend nets, her arms ache from carrying baskets of fish. But she never complains. Adewale watches her with curiosity. She isn't like the other villagers. Even in simple tasks, there's something refined about her movements. She instinctively holds herself with a grace that doesn't belong in a fishing village. One morning, as they prepare to go out on the water, Adewale hands Amara a fishing net. "Throw it like this," he demonstrates, casting it smoothly over the waves. Amara tries, but her throw is clumsy. The net barely spreads before sinking. She sighs in frustration, rubbing her hands together. "I don't think I'm meant for this," she admits. He chuckles. "You'll get the hang of it. Just takes time." As they sit waiting for the fish, she asks questions, too many questions. Why do some fish avoid certain areas? What makes the tides change? Have you ever seen a ship with golden sails? Adewale blinks at her. Golden sails? No, why? She frowns. I don't know. I just feel like I have. It isn't just her knowledge of the sea that surprises him. Amara reads with ease when she finds old scrolls in the village storehouse, even correcting a local merchant who has miscounted his goods. When a child falls sick with fever, she quickly gathers herbs, boiling them into a remedy with practiced confidence. "Where did you learn this?" Adewale asks, watching her tend to the child. Amara hesitates, confused. "I don't know. It just feels familiar." Whispers begin to spread through the village. She speaks like royalty. Maybe she's from a noble family. Or maybe she's cursed. One evening, as Adewale and Amara sit by the fire, an old village elder approaches. His eyes, cloudy with age, scan her with quiet intensity. No one washes up from the river without a reason. He murmurs. Be careful, child. Adewale stiffens. What do you mean? The elder only sighs, tapping his staff against the ground. The river carries what it chooses. Sometimes it gives. Sometimes it takes. But it never acts without purpose. Amara shivers, suddenly feeling as though unseen eyes are watching her from the shadows. One evening, as Adewale tends to his fishing nets, he notices something glinting among the torn garments Amara was wearing when he found her. He picks it up, a golden bracelet, its intricate design unlike anything found in their village. Running his fingers over the engravings, he spots a royal crest, one he has only ever seen on the banners of the kingdom of Zolani. His heart pounds. Could she be? The idea seems impossible, yet he cannot ignore the strange pieces falling into place. Amara's refined speech, her ability to read and write, her instinctive grace, none of it belongs to a simple village girl. And now this bracelet. That night as they sit by the fire, Adewale studies her carefully. Amara, have you ever seen this before? He hands her the bracelet. She takes it, turning it over in her hands. A strange expression crosses her face, confusion, familiarity, and something deeper. I don't know, she whispers. But her fingers tighten around it as if afraid to let it go. Before he can press further, a commotion stirs in the village. A traveling merchant has arrived, bringing news from the capital. The villagers gather around as he speaks of the latest happenings, and then, the king has offered a great reward, the merchant announces. The princess of Zolani is missing, lost after an ambush on her convoy. Anyone who finds her will be rewarded with gold beyond their wildest dreams. Adewale freezes. His pulse pounds in his ears as he glances at Amara, who has gone pale. The villagers murmur amongst themselves. A missing princess? What if she's already dead? The king is desperate. He would reward even a commoner if they found her. Adewale's grip tightens around the bracelet in his pocket. The thought creeps into his mind before he can stop it. If Amara truly is the missing princess, turning her in would change his life forever. He could lift himself and his mother out of poverty. No more struggling, no more barely scraping by. But then he looks at her. Amara is trembling, her hands clenched together. She doesn't need words to tell him what she is feeling: fear. Later that night, as she stares at the fire, her voice is barely a whisper. Adewale, I think someone tried to kill me. It isn't just her knowledge of the sea that surprises him. Amara reads with ease when she finds old scrolls in the village storehouse, even correcting a local merchant who has miscounted his goods. When a child falls sick with fever, she quickly gathers herbs, boiling them into a remedy with practiced confidence. Where did you learn this? Adewale asks, watching her tend to the child. Amara hesitates, confused. I don't know. It just feels familiar. Whispers begin to spread through the village. She speaks like royalty. Maybe she's from a noble family. Or maybe she's cursed. One evening, as Adewale and Amara sit by the fire, an old village elder approaches. His eyes, cloudy with age, scan her with quiet intensity. No one washes up from the river without a reason. He murmurs. Be careful, child. Adewale stiffens. What do you mean? The elder only sighs, tapping his staff against the ground. The river carries what it chooses. Sometimes it gives. Sometimes it takes. But it never acts without purpose. Amara shivers, suddenly feeling as though unseen eyes are watching her from the shadows. One evening, as Adewale tends to his fishing nets, he notices something glinting among the torn garments Amara was wearing when he found her. He picks it up, a golden bracelet, its intricate design unlike anything found in their village. Running his fingers over the engravings, he spots a royal crest, one he has only ever seen on the banners of the kingdom of Zolani. His heart pounds. Could she be? The idea seems impossible, yet he cannot ignore the strange pieces falling into place. Amara's refined speech, her ability to read and write, her instinctive grace, none of it belongs to a simple village girl. And now this bracelet. That night, as they sit by the fire, Adewale studies her carefully. Amara, have you ever seen this before? He hands her the bracelet. She takes it, turning it over in her hands. A strange expression crosses her face, confusion, familiarity, and something deeper. I don't know, she whispers. But her fingers tighten around it as if afraid to let it go. Before he can press further, a commotion stirs in the village. A traveling merchant has arrived, bringing news from the capital. The villagers gather around as he speaks of the latest happenings, and then, the king has offered a great reward, the merchant announces. The Princess of Zolani is missing, lost after an ambush on her convoy. Anyone who finds her will be rewarded with gold beyond their wildest dreams. Adewale freezes. His pulse pounds in his ears as he glances at Amara, who has gone pale. The villagers murmur amongst themselves. A missing princess? What if she's already dead? The king is desperate. He would reward even a commoner if they found her. Adewale's grip tightens around the bracelet in his pocket. The thought creeps into his mind before he can stop it. If Amara truly is the missing princess, turning her in would change his life forever. He could lift himself and his mother out of poverty. No more struggling, no more barely scraping by. But then he looks at her. Amara is trembling, her hands clenched together. She doesn't need words to tell him what she is feeling: fear. Later that night, as she stares at the fire, her voice is barely a whisper. Adewale. I think someone tried to kill me. His breath catches. What do you mean? I don't know. It's just a feeling, but when I try to remember, all I see is darkness. And cold water. And a voice. She shudders. Someone wanted me gone. Adewale's stomach twists. If she truly is the princess, someone powerful wanted her dead. Which means turning her in may not save her, it may doom her. The reward, the wealth, the life he had always dreamed of, it is all within reach. But at what cost? As the village sleeps beneath the quiet glow of the moon, a shadow moves unseen. A greedy villager, Oba, had overheard Adewale's conversation with Amara earlier that evening. He had seen the golden bracelet, heard the hushed whispers, and now his mind burned with greed. The king's reward could change his life forever. Why should Adewale be the only one with such an opportunity? Slipping away from the village, Oba hurries to the nearest outpost where palace guards sometimes pass through. But tonight he finds a different kind of soldier. Men in dark armor, with cruel eyes and weapons that do not bear the king's insignia. He hesitates, but his greed outweighs his caution. I know where the princess is, he whispers. The lead mercenary, a man with a scarred face, steps forward. Where? In the fishing village by the river. A fisherman found her. The scarred man smirks. Good. You have done well? Oba swells with pride. The king's reward. Before he can finish his sentence, a dagger plunges into his chest. He gasps, eyes wide with shock as the mercenary leans in. The king never sent us. Oba collapses to the ground, lifeless. Hours later, just before dawn, the quiet village is shattered by the sound of hooves and the glow of torches. Adewale awakens to frantic shouts and the smell of smoke. He bolts upright, his heart hammering. Through the cracks in his hut, he sees dark figures moving between the homes, setting them ablaze. Then a voice, deep, commanding, cuts through the chaos. Find the girl. Kill anyone who gets in the way. Adewale's blood runs cold. He scrambles to his feet and rushes to Amara's side. She is already awake, her eyes wide with fear. They're here for me, she breathes. He doesn't waste a second. Grabbing her hand, he pulls her toward the back of the hut. We have to go. Now. But before they can slip out, the door crashes open. A mercenary lunges at them, sword drawn. Adewale barely manages to dodge, grabbing a wooden staff to defend himself. He swings, striking the attacker across the face. The man stumbles, giving them just enough time to escape. Outside, the village is in chaos. Flames consume the homes, villagers scream, and those who try to fight back are cut down. These men were never sent to bring Amara home, they were sent to make sure she never returns. Adewale and Amara race through the burning village, their lungs filled with smoke. Behind them, the mercenaries give chase. The river, Adewale shouts. If we can reach my boat. A sudden explosion of light fills the sky as another hut ignites. Amara stumbles, memories flashing in her mind, fire, shouting, the same terror she had felt the night she lost everything. Adewale grabs her hand, steadying her. Stay with me. They push forward, dodging arrows and slashing swords. The river comes into view, Adewale's boat sways gently on the shore. Just a little further. An arrow whizzes past Adewale's ear, embedding itself into a tree. He spins around, seeing the scarred leader raising his bow for another shot. Without thinking, Adewale grabs a burning log from the ground and hurls it toward the man. The flames catch on his cloak and he roars in pain. Amara and Adewale leap into the boat. With all his strength, Adewale pushes off from the shore. The mercenaries charge after them, but the river's current is too strong. They are safe. For now. As the village burns behind them, Amara turns to Adewale, her eyes filled with sorrow and fear. This wasn't just about finding me, she whispers. They wanted me dead. Adewale grips the oar tightly, his jaw set. Then we find out why. The boat drifts down the river, carrying Adewale and Amara away from the burning village. Smoke still lingers in the air, a cruel reminder of the destruction left behind. Adewale grips the oar, his muscles tense, his mind racing. Amara sits beside him, silent, her fingers tracing the golden bracelet on her wrist. Every time she touches it, something stirs in the back of her mind. A name, a voice, a feeling just beyond her grasp. After hours of travel, the river opens into a vast, open landscape. The capital lies days away, but the journey will be anything but easy. Their first night on land is restless. They make camp beneath a massive baobab tree, the sky above them glittering with stars. Adewale barely sleeps, his mind replaying the night's horrors. He saved Amara, but at what cost? His village, his home, is gone. Beside him, Amara shifts in her sleep, mumbling softly. Adewale leans closer. Amara? Her eyes flutter open, filled with a mix of fear and confusion. I saw something in my dream. A name. Okoro? The name sends a chill down Adewale's spine. Okoro? Who is that? Amara presses her temples. I don't know. But it feels important. Adewale exhales sharply. Then we find out who he is. The next morning they continue their journey on foot. The road is long, winding through dense forests and open plains. As the sun reaches its peak, they stop at a roadside marketplace, hoping to gather supplies. But the moment they step into the crowd, they realize something is wrong. A group of men stand by a notice board, whispering among themselves. Adewale inches closer and feels his stomach drop. A parchment flutters in the wind, pinned to the board. A royal decree. A reward of 500 gold pieces for the return of Princess Amara, dead or alive. Amara's breath catches. They want me dead. Adewale clenches his fists. Which means we have to move fast. But before they can slip away, a merchant woman grabs Amara's wrist. You shouldn't be here, child, she says in a hushed tone. Adewale tenses, ready to pull Amara away, but the woman's eyes are kind, wise. You seek the capital, yes? The woman continues. There is another path. A safer one. Amara hesitates. Who are you? The woman only smiles. Someone who still remembers the true king. Follow me. They travel with the woman for hours, through hidden trails and quiet paths away from the main roads. As night falls, she leads them to a small, abandoned shrine in the middle of the forest. Rest here, she says. Before leaving, she looks at Amara one last time. Your father is waiting for you. But be careful, the enemy wears a familiar face. And just like that, she vanishes into the night. Amara stares after her, confusion written all over her face. Who was she? Adewale watches the trees, his grip tightening on his knife. Someone who knows more than she's telling us. Amara swallows hard. We have to reach the palace. We have to find out who Okoro is. Adewale nods. And when we do, we'll finally have our answers. The towering walls of the palace rise before them, bathed in the golden glow of torches. Adewale grips the hilt of his dagger, his heart pounding. He has spent his life near the sea, far from the grand halls of kings and traders. Now he stands at the gates of power, ready to face whatever awaits inside. Amara pulls the hood of her cloak lower, her hands trembling. If Okoro has declared me dead, then we have no allies here. Adewale looks at her. Then we make our own allies. They slip through the shadows, moving past guards who have grown complacent under Okoro's rule. The palace is eerily silent. Once a place of music and celebration, it now feels more like a prison. They find their way to the royal chambers where Amara's father, the once great King Jabari, sits on his throne, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. Father, Amara whispers, stepping forward. The king barely lifts his head. Who dares? His voice falters as he takes in her face. Amara kneels before him. It's me, father. It's Amara. He shakes his head, pain flickering in his eyes. Amara is dead. Minister Okoro saw her body himself. This is some cruel trick. Tears well in Amara's eyes. She removes her bracelet, placing it in his hands. Do you remember this? The king's fingers tremble as he turns it over. His breath catches. Your mother gave you this when you were born. But it cannot be. Amara pushes back her sleeve, revealing a small birthmark on her wrist, the mark of the royal bloodline. And this? Recognition dawns in the king's weary eyes. He reaches for her, hands shaking. Amara, my daughter, you're alive. Before they can embrace, the doors burst open. Okoro strides in, flanked by guards. His face twists in a mask of fury. Sees that girl? She is an imposter. The guards hesitate, glancing between the king and Amara. Doubt flickers in their eyes. Adewale steps in front of Amara, dagger drawn. She is the princess and you know it? Okoro sneers. You think a mere fisherman can challenge me? Adewale smirks. A fisherman who pulled a princess from the river. The king rises to his feet, weak but determined. Enough. His voice, though hoarse, carries the weight of command. Arrest Minister Okoro, he orders. The guards waver. Okoro snarls, drawing his sword. If you want the throne back, your majesty, you'll have to fight for it. Adewale tightens his grip on his dagger. He never imagined himself in a palace, let alone fighting for a princess. But if this is his destiny, then so be it. The battle for the truth has begun. As the dawn breaks over the kingdom, the palace is no longer shrouded in deceit. The truth about Minister Okoro's treachery spreads like wildfire. His betrayal, the ambush, and his ruthless grasp for power. The people, long fearful of his influence, begin to rally behind their true princess. Inside the grand throne room, tension crackles in the air. Amara, now standing tall with the regal poise of a true heir, faces Okoro. His once confident sneer falters as loyal guards and palace officials turn against him. You tried to erase me, Amara says, her voice steady. But the truth cannot be buried. Okoro snarls. And what will you do, princess? You think these fools will save you? Power is not given, it is taken. Before anyone can react, he lunges for Amara, drawing a hidden dagger. But Adewale is faster. With a swift movement, he intercepts Okoro, grabbing his wrist and twisting the blade away. A fisherman's reflexes, honed from years of struggling against raging tides, serve him well against a man accustomed to power but not to real struggle. Okoro stumbles back, eyes wild. He turns to flee, but the guards block his escape. He is finally trapped. You would have drowned me, Amara says, stepping closer. Now you will face justice. Okoro, defeated, is dragged away in chains, his reign of terror over. The kingdom rejoices as Amara is reinstated as the rightful princess. The palace gates are open to the people, who cheer her return. Her father, overcome with emotion, places his hands on her shoulders. You are stronger than I ever imagined, my child. Amara smiles, but her eyes search for someone else, Adewale. Outside the palace walls, Adewale stands at the edge of the courtyard. He watches the celebration from a distance, feeling out of place. He was never meant for a life of gold and thrones. He did what was right. Now it's time to return home. He turns to leave. Adewale. He stops. Amara stands before him, dressed in royal attire but looking at him with the same warmth she always had. You're leaving? She asks. He nods. You are where you belong now. And I belong by the sea. Amara hesitates, then takes his hand. You saved me. Not just from the river but from losing myself. You belong wherever you choose to be. For the first time, Adewale wonders if destiny has more in store for him than just the waves. The royal court gathers as the king offers Adewale his reward. Gold, land, a noble title, anything he desires. The courtiers whisper among themselves, expecting him to seize the riches laid before him. But Adewale bows his head and speaks with quiet resolve. I ask for only one thing, that my village be protected, that its people never go hungry or suffer again. Silence falls over the hall. The nobles exchange puzzled glances, but the king watches Adewale with admiration. You are a rare man, the king says. Your heart is richer than all the treasures in this palace. Later that evening, Amara stands before the court, stronger than ever. No longer the lost girl who washed ashore, she is now a ruler in her own right. I will not be bound by the past, she declares. I will not be given away in marriage to secure alliances. I will rule as my own person. The decision stuns the court, but none dare challenge her. She has reclaimed her throne and with it, the power to shape her own future. As her first act as princess, Amara grants Adewale an honorary noble title, not out of obligation but out of gratitude. You saved me, she tells him. Now, let me ensure your people are never forgotten. Weeks later, Adewale returns to his village, but not as the poor fisherman who left. The villagers welcome him home with cheers, calling him a legend. The fisherman who saved a princess, they say. The man who changed the fate of a kingdom. But Adewale doesn't see himself that way. As he sails out once more, casting his net into the waves, he smiles. He never sought greatness. But fate had other plans.